He served her the papers on a Monday, which was the same day her mother was buried. He did not go to the burial. He said he had a meeting in Kumasi he could not move. He sent the papers with his brother Kwekio, who placed them on the kitchen table at 7:11 a.m., and then stood by the door with his hands in his pockets and did not say anything. The envelope was white and thin and had the name of a law firm printed in navy blue in the top left corner, Mensa Boating and Partners, East Legon, Accra. Kweku left before she finished reading them. The door did not quite close behind him. She got up and closed it herself. Nana Adwoa Owusu Boateng was 49 years old on that Monday. She had been married to Clifford Owusu Boateng for 22 years. She stood 5'4" and had the kind of stillness that people who have been managing difficult things for a long time sometimes develop. Not coldness, not distance, just an economy of expression that comes from having learned that the face is not a place to put everything. She was wearing a black dress she had bought from a seamstress on Osu Oxford Street 7 years ago for 95 cedis. She had worn it to funerals before. She had not expected to wear it to receive divorce papers. She folded the documents back into the envelope and set it at the far end of the kitchen table, next to a bowl of garden eggs she had been about to take to a neighbor, and beside the small, leather-bound ledger she kept on the kitchen counter, the way other people keep recipe books, because she had always tracked the household accounts by hand, every month, every item, in columns that were never approximate. She had been doing it since the first year of the marriage. Clifford had called it unnecessary in the early years. He had stopped commenting on it when, in year 4, the ledger was the thing that proved to the tax authority that a particular business expense of his had in fact already been claimed. He had not said anything about it after that. She continued keeping it. She picked up the bowl of garden eggs and carried them across the compound to Mrs. Tago's door. She knocked. She waited. Mrs. Tago answered in her house clothes, surprised, and Nana Adwoa said she had more than she needed, and Mrs. Tago should take them. Mrs. Tago said thank you and looked at Nana Adwoa's face for a moment, and then looked at the garden eggs. She did not ask anything. Nana Adwoa said have a good morning and walked back across the compound. She had lost her job 7 months earlier. She had been senior accountant at a construction firm called Volta Bridge and Infrastructure. 12 years in the same building, the same floor, the same desk, 3 windows from the left. The layoffs had come in 3 rounds. Her name appeared in the 3rd. She was given 8 weeks severance and a reference letter signed by a director who had started at the company 4 years after she did, and had, in those 4 years, passed her on the organizational chart at a speed she had watched with a particular kind of understanding. She cleared her desk on a Friday afternoon in August. She carried her things out in 1 brown box. Clifford had said at the time that he understood. He said these things happened. He said she would find something else. He said all of this in the 1st week. By the 3rd week, he had stopped asking about the job applications. By the 6th week, he had started having dinner somewhere else 4 nights out of 7, and when she asked where, he said with clients, with colleagues, with people he needed to see for work, and there was a smoothness to the answers that told her the answers had been prepared in advance. She did not say that to him. She wrote it in a notebook she kept in the drawer of the bedside table on her side of the bed. She had been keeping that notebook for 14 years. The entries were not dramatic. They were not accusations. They were observations, precise and dated, in the handwriting of a woman who spent her professional life accounting for things that other people preferred not to look at directly. She continued applying for positions. In September, she applied for 4 roles. In October, 6. In November, she had 3 interviews. 1 at a development finance institution on the Liberation Road, 1 at a construction group in Airport City, 1 at a smaller firm in Lebon she had found through a former colleague. The development finance role sent a rejection by email on a Wednesday, with no explanation. The airport city position she reached the final two was told to expect a decision by the end of the following week, and did not hear back for 3 weeks. When she followed up, she was told they had decided to promote internally. She noted this in the notebook not because it was anything other than what it appeared to be, but because she had learned, in 12 years as an accountant, that patterns only become visible if you keep the records. Clifford did not ask about the applications after October. He did not ask about much after October. The house had the quality of a house where two people are rehearsing different futures in the same rooms without yet having named what they are doing. Her friend Constance, who had known her since university, who called every Sunday between 6 and 7 p.m. Without ever formally agreeing this was the arrangement, was the one who told her about Sandra. She did it on a Sunday in late November. She said she had been going back and forth for 3 weeks. She said not saying anything had started to feel like its own kind of lying. Sandra worked at the EcoBank branch in Zorwulu. She was 31. Constance had seen them at a restaurant in Osu on a Saturday evening in October, sitting close, and Clifford had seen Constance on his way out and said nothing, and Constance had said nothing, and she had gone home and tried to call Nana Adwoa 3 times and ended each call before it connected. Nana Adwoa held the phone and looked out the bedroom window at the mango tree in the compound that had not produced fruit in 4 years, because Clifford kept saying the branches needed cutting and never cut them. She said she appreciated Constance telling her. She said she had had a sense. Constance asked what she was going to do. She said she was going to finish the application for the position at the infrastructure consultancy on the Tema motorway before the Friday deadline. Constance was quiet. Then she said she would pray for her. Nana Adwoa said please do. He was 54 years old and ran a freight brokerage out of an office on the Liberation Road extension. He had 31 employees and a compound house in Cantonments and a black Mercedes AMG with tinted windows he leased for 4,200 cedis a month. He had also, for the past 9 months, she had worked this out from the dates and the receipts and the particular way a lie develops a rhythm, been seeing Sandra from the Zorwulu branch, which she now knew not as a suspicion, but as a fact, dated and recorded. This is the part of the story where the world assumes the woman breaks. She did not break. She read the divorce papers a second time, from the beginning, making small pencil marks in the margins at the places she would need to address. She was an accountant. She marked what needed to be counted. Her mother's name was Abena Konadu Owusu. She had been born in Kumawu in 1946, the 4th daughter of a cocoa farmer who had 7 children and a piece of land he refused to sell for the entire 31 years of his life that people offered to buy it. He had told his children, before he died in 1979, that the land was not his to sell. They had asked whose it was, then he said theirs. He said it would be clearer when the time came. Abena Konadu Owusu had moved to Accra in 1971. She had worked as a trader in Makola Market for 11 years, fabric, beads, shea butter, dried fish, and she had saved money in a way that required a specific kind of discipline, not the discipline of wanting less, but the discipline of wanting the same things and finding smaller and smaller ways to reach them. She had raised Nana Adwoa alone from the age of 4, after a man who was not mentioned in the family by name had found other arrangements. She had sent Nana Adwoa to university. She had attended the graduation in a kente cloth she had been keeping for an occasion for 9 years. In the last decade of her life, Abena Konadu Owusu had gone home to Kumawu every August for 2 weeks. She had also, in that decade, made 3 trips to a solicitor's office on Ring Road Central. She had not told Nana Adwoa about those trips. She had not told anyone. She had sat across from a lawyer named Mr. Asiedu Larbi, who was 67 and smelled of tiger balm and kept meticulous records, and she had completed what she had started. The solicitor's letter arrived at Nana Adwoa's address on a Thursday morning, 11 days after the burial. It said she was required to attend a reading of the estate of Abena Konadu Owusu, deceased, at the offices of Asiedu Larbi and Associates on Ring Road Central, at 10 a.m. on the following Tuesday. She read it standing at the front door in her wrapper, with the morning light coming in sideways across the compound floor. Then she went inside and put on the kettle. If this story is already sitting somewhere behind your ribs, subscribe now. Because what Nana Adwoa walks into on that Tuesday morning is not what anyone in her life had prepared her to understand. She wore a dark blue dress to the solicitor's office. She took a taxi from the house in Cantonments, her house, in her name, which Clifford had left 6 weeks before the papers were served, moving most of his things on a Saturday morning in a borrowed truck while she was at the market, which she had also noted, with a date, in the notebook. She arrived at Ring Road Central at 9:47 a.m. and sat in the waiting room for 13 minutes, looking at a framed map of Ghana on the wall that had been printed sometime in the 1980s and still showed the regional boundaries before the 2018 reorganization. Mr. Asiedu Larbi was 70. He was compact, careful-handed, with bifocals on a cord around his neck that he put on and took off as though the activity of reading and the activity of looking at a person were two completely separate tasks requiring separate equipment. He poured her a glass of water before he began. He said her mother had been a very thorough woman. He said it with the particular respect of a man who had spent 40 years watching people handle their affairs and had learned to recognize the difference between a person who was organized and a person who had a plan. He placed a folder on the desk between them. Abena Konadu Owusu had, over the course of 11 years, consolidated and formalized her father's land in Kumawu. The original parcel, 6.5 acres, registered in her father's name in 1961, had been surveyed and titled. She had then, through an arrangement with a property development company operating in the Ashanti region, entered into a joint venture agreement in 2016. The development had been completed in 2022, a mixed-use residential and commercial compound of 14 units on Kumawu Road, currently generating a monthly rental income of 28,400 cedis per month. In addition, Abena Konadu Owusu had maintained a savings and investment account with an asset management firm in Accra since 2009. The account had been opened with 4,000 cedis. Over 14 years, through consistent monthly contributions and reinvestment of returns, it had grown to a balance of 1,640,000 cedis. Everything was in Nana Adwoa's name. Mr. Asiedu Larbi placed the account statement on the desk. He placed the property title documents beside it. He put his bifocals on, and then he put them off and looked at her. She looked at the documents. She looked at the number on the account statement. She looked at it for a long time. She never said anything, Nana Adwoa said. Mr. Asiedu Larbi said her mother had left a letter. He took it from the folder. It was 2 pages, handwritten, in the careful and slightly formal twee her mother had always used in writing, the kind of twee that sounds like it was composed slowly, and with the knowledge that it would be read by someone who would understand every weight behind every word. He placed it on the desk and said he would give her some time. He got up and left the room quietly. The way people leave a room when they understand what a person needs is not company. She read the letter twice. Her mother wrote that she had not told her because she did not want the money to change what Nana Adwoa built on her own. She wrote that she had watched her daughter work with the precision and the patience of someone who understood that things grow slowly and that slow things are not lesser things. She wrote that the land was her father's and his father's before him, and that it had been waiting, the way land waits, for someone to know what to do with it. She wrote that she believed Nana Adwoa would know. At the bottom of the second page, in smaller letters than the rest, she had written, "Do not let anyone make you accountable for what you carry. You have been carrying more than they could see." Nana Adwoa folded the letter and put it in her bag. She drank the glass of water Mr. Asiedu Larbi had left for her. She picked up the account statement and the property documents, and she placed them carefully in the leather folder she had brought with her, the one she had used for 12 years at Volta Bridge and Infrastructure to carry documents that other people needed to understand. She closed the folder. She asked Mr. Asiedu Larbi, when he came back in, whether there was anything further to sign. He said there were several things to sign. They spent 45 minutes signing them. She left the office on Ring Road Central at 11:52 a.m. and stood on the pavement for a moment in the white morning heat, with trotros passing and a man selling ice water in plastic bags from a cooler, and the ordinary noise of Accra making no adjustment whatsoever for what had just happened inside that building. She took a taxi home. The divorce had been filed under Ghanaian law, citing irretrievable breakdown of the marriage. Clifford's lawyers at Mensa Boateng and Partners had proposed a settlement that awarded her the Cantonment's house and a lump sum of 80,000 cedis. They had based this on her declared income, which had been zero since August, and on his declared assets, which were the freight brokerage, the leased Mercedes, and a partial interest in a warehouse in Tama. His lawyers had been thorough in their review of what was visible. Her own lawyer, a woman named Pauline Asante Mensah, who practiced out of a 2-room office in Osu, and who had been recommended by a friend who had also, some years ago, needed someone methodical rather than dramatic, received Nana Adwoa in her office on the Wednesday following the Ring Road Central meeting. Nana Adwoa placed the leather folder on Pauline's desk. Pauline Asante Mensah was 53 and had the particular steadiness of a person who has spent a career in rooms where the situation is worse than it appears and has learned that the correct response is never to perform surprise. She opened the folder. She looked at the account statement. She looked at the property title documents and the rental income summary. She said nothing for a moment. Then she said she would need to make some notes. The amended response to Clifford's settlement proposal was filed on a Friday, 19 days after the original papers had been placed on the kitchen table by a man who left without closing the door. It ran to 11 pages. It included a full disclosure of the estate assets, a revised calculation of marital assets based on the applicable statute, and a request for a proportional settlement that reflected the actual financial position of both parties. Clifford received it on a Monday. His lawyer called Pauline Asante Mensah that afternoon. Pauline said she was unavailable until Thursday. She was available. She simply did not pick up on Monday. Clifford called Nana Adwoa's mobile at 6:34 p.m. She watched the screen until it stopped ringing. He called again at 7:02 p.m. She watched that one too. At 7:15 p.m., he sent a message that said, "Call me, please." It had been 7 months since he had used the word please in any communication she had received from him. She noted this. She did not reply. He arrived at the Cantonment's house at 8:40 p.m. on a Tuesday, which was 49 hours after his lawyer received the amended filing. He rang the gate bell 3 times. She could hear him through the window of the upstairs room where she had been working, going through the property management documents Mr. Asiedu Larbi had passed to her, making her own notes in the margins. She had been doing this for 4 evenings in a row, from 7 p.m. until the compound went quiet. She had found 3 areas where the existing rental agreements needed to be updated. She had found one potential issue with the Kumawu land boundary survey that she had flagged to Mr. Asiedu Larbi. She went downstairs. She opened the gate. He was wearing a white shirt she recognized. She had bought it for him 4 years ago from a tailor in Atabraka for 120 cedis. He looked as he always had looked, presentable, certain of himself, with the specific expression of a man who has arrived with the intention of resolving something on terms he has already decided are reasonable. He said they needed to talk. She said she knew. He said he had not understood. He said his lawyers had not told him. He said the number was. He stopped. He said he thought they should sit down. She said she had a lawyer. She said anything he wanted to say should go through Pauline Asante Mensah. He said he wasn't talking about the lawyers. He said he was talking about them. She looked at him for a moment. He was standing at the gate in the white shirt in the dark, and there was a quality to his expression she had seen only once before in 22 years, at the funeral of his father 12 years ago, in Kumasi, when he had stood at the graveside and understood for the first time that there are things which do not reverse. He had that expression now. She said she knew what he was talking about. She said she had been patient for a long time, and she had done very careful work, and she needed him to understand that the document her mother had left her was not something that changed what had happened between them. It did not rewrite anything. It simply clarified what she had already been carrying while he was deciding she was not enough. He said he had made a mistake. She said she knew that too. She said good night. She closed the gate. The divorce was finalized on the 14th of the following month. The settlement, as negotiated by Pauline Asante Mensah over 6 weeks of correspondence, was considerably different from the original proposal. Nana Adwoa retained the cantonment's house and received a cash settlement reflecting a fair portion of the marital assets, as calculated under the law. Her own inherited estate was treated separately, as it predated the marriage in its origins. Pauline had been very precise about the origins. Clifford kept the freight brokerage and the warehouse interest. He returned the leased Mercedes to the leasing company 3 months later, when the monthly payment became a different kind of calculation. Sandra, the woman from the Zorwulu bank branch, had stopped returning his messages by February. Nana Adwoa hired a property manager for the Kumawu compound, a man named Tobena Nwosu, who had been recommended by the development company and who drove up to Kumawu once a month to inspect the 14 units and collect the rental summaries. She met with him on the last Wednesday of every month in a restaurant on Osu Oxford Street and reviewed the reports over rice and contomire stew. She paid his monthly fee of 2,800 cedis, and she paid it on the 1st of every month without being reminded. She found a new position in March, senior finance manager at an infrastructure consultancy with offices on the Tema motorway. The title was 1 level above what she had held at Volta Bridge. The salary was 40% higher. She had applied for it in November, 4 months before the divorce was finalized, on a Tuesday evening at 9:30 p.m., from the upstairs room where she had also been going through the property documents. The application had taken her 45 minutes. She had been preparing for it for 12 years. She did not move out of the Cantonment's house. She painted the living room a dark green she had been thinking about for 6 years. She had the kitchen tiles replaced. The original ones had been cracked at the grout line since 2019, and she had been told, repeatedly, that it was fine. It was cosmetic. It did not need to be done now. She had it done in April. The new tiles were a matte ivory, 30 centimeters by 30 centimeters, even and clean in a way that mattered to her precisely because it had been delayed. She kept her mother's letter in the back of the 14-year notebook, behind the last dated entry. She read it on the morning of the day the divorce was finalized. She read it on her birthday in May. She folded it back with the same care both times, along the original crease lines, the way her mother had always taught her to fold things, not because the paper required it, but because some things are worth handling precisely. Clifford does not appear further in this story. He went on. Most people do. There is something that belongs to you in what just happened. Something that is not about Nana Adwoa at all. Or not only about her. Abina Konadu Owusu started with 4,000 cedis and a piece of land her father refused to sell. She started late. She started after loss. She started in a market stall, counting fabric by the yard and shea butter by the tin, saving in amounts so small they would not register on any balance sheet a man like Clifford had ever looked at. She told no one. She kept no audience. She did not build this to be witnessed. She built it to be inherited. There is a difference. One requires recognition to survive. The other does not. The people who treated Nana Adwoa as a liability the moment she lost her salary, they were not looking at her. They were looking at her income. Those are not the same thing. A woman's income can disappear in a layoff. What she carries cannot be handed a severance letter. The 22 years of precise, careful work. The 14 years of honest observation and a notebook, the knowledge of where the broken tile is, and the patience to wait for the right time to fix it. None of that was in any file that Clifford's lawyers reviewed. Some things are not on the balance sheet. They are in the letter. They are in the land. They are in the 4,000 cedis your mother put away in 2009 without telling you, because she was too busy believing in you to explain herself. You cannot divorce someone from what they carry. You can leave. You can send papers with a brother who doesn't close the door. But you cannot take what was never yours to hold. If you have ever been looked past in a moment when you needed someone to look at you, leave your answer in the comments. Not what happened after. What it felt like to keep going anyway. Subscribe for more stories about hidden strength, quiet power, and the people the world overlooks until they change everything. I'll see you in the next one.